Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. So, I wanted to introduce Kendra Johnson from the Venned Group. Kendra, thank you so much for joining us. For people who don't know you yet, can you give us like the 60-second version of who you are, what you do at the Venned Group, and who you're usually in the trenches with?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me, Jess. Super excited for the conversation today, one that we both feel very strongly about. So essentially at the Vend Group, we work with organizations who are growing fast, but also want to make sure that their people grow with them. So we're normally in the trenches with executives and bridging the gap between themselves and their middle managers who are responsible for managing up, down, out, and laterally. So when we work with these folks, whether it's through workshops, programs, one-on-one coaching, or simply just sharing resources, we're looking to essentially fix some of the trust gaps that exist in fast moving and fast scaling businesses, the expectation gaps, the skills gaps, and all those pieces that really put up some blockers and barriers between teams and executives that are trying to translate vision and the middle managers who are trying to execute on that vision and share that information to the rest of the team. So we want to make sure that this information sticks, and we use real life examples so that our leaders are equipped for the time when they say nobody's watching, but in managers' case, really when everybody is watching them.
For sure. I know that we were talking last week about, my experience through corporate. I was in a corporate setting with, within a 5-year time frame between two organizations. And one of the common themes that came across in this corporate setting were that individual contributors were being moved into leadership positions and then almost kind of totally being abandoned. Almost. They had peer networks and peer groups and whatnot, but a lot of the time there was no training, no coaching, no context, just good luck. Right. So why does this keep happening? And like, what's the fallout when leaders are winging it from day one?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It still exists. It's still a problem. And the old mindset is that most companies see leadership or management as a reward for performance, rather than a shift in skill set. So
Hmm.
essentially, you're putting somebody into a brand new environment, somebody who was great at one job previously, but we promote them without realizing that we've just handed them an entirely new role that they have never been trained for. So, first
Hmm.
of all, we need to switch that mindset between leadership being a reward for performance and it being a new skill we need to train on. So taking a different almost training path. And for example, like I once worked with a sales leader and he was totally crushing his targets, hitting everything. He was promoted, took on two different teams, and he was miserable. He said, like, now I have to sit in back to back one-on-ones all day every day. I feel like I suck at them. I'm letting my team down. I'm not good at this. And he was frustrated and disappointed. His leaders were frustrated and disappointed because they thought, like, he's been so great, why can't he perform here? But when leaders are left to just really wing it on their own, first of all, their morale dips, the rest of the morale on the team dips because they're supposed to be led by someone who is just trying to make it. uh,
Hmm.
and often they're focused so much on the technical tasks that they're also stopping that leadership pipeline from developing because it's more about how do we get the work done rather than how do I grow my team to expand our capacity as well.
Hmm.
So they become the bottlenecks at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
100%. 100%. That is definitely some food for thought, especially for any executive that's basically watching this right now that is still doing this. Because we know there's a lot of executives that are watching right now that are still doing this. It's just something to think about. So another problem that I ran into a lot, and I still run into, teams don't talk to each other. A product's doing one thing, ops is on a different planet, marketing is in the dark. Like, why are companies still struggling with basic cross-functional alignment, and like what needs to change as of yesterday?
Yeah, so I see this in kind of two prongs, and let's remove geography, let's remove technology, and let's just bring it back to like humans being humans for a second. So the first piece is that teams are still operating kind of like their mini kingdoms, and nobody's really teaching managers how to lead across as well. So one of the things when we go into our training sessions with middle managers is we normally ask, who's your first team? And this was actually a phrase coined by a brilliant CTO, Paul Lewis. But who's your first team? And if they say, well, my direct reports, well, then we have a problem because it's actually their peer group. And what you want is that middle management group to have that information flow seamlessly from one into one, pass the baton, let's say, from one team to the next. But they're looking at protecting their direct reports, protecting their team, protecting their function. So they're not actually thinking about what happens before and after us. So I'd say that's the the first issue. And the second is that it is a communication problem, but it's more a context problem. So to segue from what I was saying about the baton pass, oh my gosh,
The
the
baton pass.
baton pass,
Yeah.
easier said than actually, easier compartmentalized than said. Leaders aren't actually helping their people see the whole picture. So that creates silos. That means that no leader's understanding how their work actually fits into the big picture. So they're essentially operating, as I mentioned, in their mini kingdoms, and there isn't any further context to say, here's the ripple effect from good work or poor work, and here's what happens and how you strengthen relationships, how you find bugs, how you solve problems collectively for our clients when you talk to your peers. Instead, it's just focused on fix my function and everybody else can figure it out. When we have the same group or cohort of peers in a room, we've seen priorities get hashed out where, people are saying, oh my God, I actually didn't realize that's what you were working on over there. And here I've been counting on you to help me, but your priority is more pertinent right now for our strategic goals. Or someone saying, like, from a dev team, I didn't realize that was actually an issue. Why has nobody come to me yet? It's a very simple fix. And the sales team saying, I don't know, we just never thought of it. We thought it was just the way we've always done things. So it's creating those little moments for even just a way to connect that brings forward those very minute points of friction, but that solve really big, annoying problems.
Yeah, for sure. On the back end, on my end, I think some of the organizations that I've talked to, when diving a little bit deeper, I'm asking them questions in regards to the metrics that they are tracking. And some of them aren't even tracking cost per hire or time to fill. And they say hiring is a priority, but then they're blind to the bottlenecks that are killing the momentum, right? We need that data on the back end. So I think the question that I have is, what metrics should leaders actually care about when it comes to hiring? And what do you think is getting ignored?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So when it comes to hiring, first of all, know what you're hiring for. So let's call it time to clarity, right? How long does it actually take your team to identify the gaps and know what they need to fill for? Do you actually know the resources that you have in house that you're underutilizing before you look to hire? Most people don't, which is why, and I'm sure you have seen this 3 times over.
I built them. I built the resources. I built them, guys. I'm so excited. We have them in front of people. But anyways, I'll touch on that later. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But that's what people need, right? It's how do we understand the resources that exist currently? Otherwise, you get into a hiring frenzy, which we know on the back end doesn't always end well when we realize we actually don't need all of these people. We just need to be more efficient. So I'd say time to clarity, understand how long it takes your team to actually identify what's needed. How long does it take for your team to make a decision? Because how many people do you need to weigh in on the process? And right? Newsflash, like, it shouldn't be the entire executive team.
No.
Pick a select few that are going to work closely with this person and trust the TA or the recruiter to do their job and to tell you what is best based on the criteria. And I'd say the third, which is really important, is like the drop-off point.
Yeah.
Where are you losing people? And most companies that I've seen don't actually take that into consideration and just say, oh, they got scooped up by someone else. Woe is me.
No, that's not acceptable.
Right. There's something going on there. So
for sure.
It's important.
I wanted to get into something like something that I would call lazy performance metrics. And so I think a lot of teams are still measuring output, but they're not actually measuring performance. Like, they're tracking activity, but not impact. What are some examples where leaders are completely missing the point when it comes to performance measurement?
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard it through COVID. This person's probably just sitting at home watching Netflix, even though they're online from 9 to 5. Could be the case, could also not be the case, but there are studies that show, I think it's even in a full 8-hour workday, if somebody's sitting at their desk, they're only really productive for like 4 of them. So probably even less than 50%. And not everybody has the same working cycles, the same energy cycles, but in the same vein, we're also now so geographically dispersed that some of your team members also need to be online in the evening to collaborate with their counterparts in other places. So if you were to think about activity and you're wondering why somebody's not online from 9 to 12 a.m. on Slack, that's not actually telling you anything about their performance or their output or the quality of their work. It's just telling you that they're now giving up 24 hours of their day essentially for the company. So let's look at and shift the perspective to what actually moves the needle. What does success look like on the other side? It's not hours invested, but it's the output of the work. And we're seeing a lot of teams start to move towards that. But
Hmm.
unless they have defined criteria, it makes it really hard to identify what good, what great, and then what falling short looks like. So that's where we come in and help actually define those
Yeah.
metrics.
So the next one is really a big one. It's a conversation that's been going on literally for years since I started in this industry as a recruitment professional when I went corporate. And HR and TA deals with this a lot. HR and recruiting are still an afterthought at most companies. And they're an afterthought in a lot of strategic conversations. They're brought in after the decisions are made and expected to clean it all up. So, how can founders and execs stop treating talent teams and HR like admins and actually start using them as strategic partners?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because HR and TAs are for, if you think of them as forward looking operators. So they have the data that allows you to forecast
Hmm.
what you need, what the market's looking for, what the market's offering right now. Um, I always equate it to like baking a cake, right?
Yeah.
So HR and TA have the recipe. They've got the recipe down to a science. And if you just start winging things in a bowl, your cake will not come out the way you want it to. If you take that recipe, you go step by step, you look at what's needed, then you can bake the perfect cake. The same
Yeah.
thing goes with giving HR and talent acquisition folks a seat at the table. Know what you're looking for, know what the market is offering so that you can strategically build your team rather than being disappointed on the back end when you either can't get what you want, you're not finding what you want, or you're settling for something because you just need to fill the role as soon as possible and
Yeah.
you haven't planned or predicted for that months prior.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things too is, because I talk to a lot of HR professionals on the back end as well, we're really just trying to be in your blind spot,
Yeah.
to the point where we essentially want to prevent you from getting sued. I mean, it's one of those important conversations that needs to be had. I just don't think anyone's really, people are saying it, but it's one of these things. I don't think it's said enough, right? Like we need to be in your blind spot. We need to be at the leadership level, having these discussions with your team, because the next thing you know, you're thinking something's a great idea. But look, like we've seen this movie before. We know how this ends up, right? So you definitely need us on your side. So if a founder or exec is listening to this and nodding along, what's one small but high impact step that they could take right now?
Ooh, one small step they can take right now. I would say think about the resources you have in house already and start to predict who can help you plug and fill those gaps, whether that's looking at your leadership pipeline and developing those managers into successors, whether that's saying, hey, we actually don't have any successors in the pipeline, so we need to start recruiting for them now because
Yeah.
that process takes time also to train and develop somebody, get them accustomed to the culture. So
Yeah.
I would say do a deep dive and a reflection on what you're working with currently, where your gaps are, and then look at the strategic partners that can help you move that needle forward so you can focus on what you do really well
Yeah.
and they can take on the rest.
Amazing. Kendra, this was amazing. Thank you so much for being here and keeping it real. To everyone watching, if you're dealing with any of this, messy leadership transitions, hiring delays, team silos, you're not sure what you should be benchmarking, DM me or Kendra. We've seen it all, and we're happy to point you in the right direction. I have free technical resources and matrices that I've been putting in front of executives for the conversations that need to be happening before you even think about clicking post job. We've picked up a lot of steam with those now and have them in front of 33 leaders and engineering departments. And we're both on a mission to help founders and executives stop making the expensive mistakes that are constantly coming up. So if you want those, send me a DM and the word hiring, and I will get them over to you right away. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and I hope you all have a strong week ahead.